Welcome back to Faith, Frauds, and Falsehoods, where we explore various cults and religions of the world. Tonight, we're continuing our discussion on the Institute in Basic Life Principles, the IBLP. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help others to find us.
Before we begin, let's make it clear the opinions that we present are ours alone. They do not represent the views or opinions of our respective churches or employers. Now let's begin.
Right. Nice.
So we're still in the teachings part here.
We are. Yep.
And we're going to talk about the hierarchical structure. I can't say hierarchical. Hierarchical. Say that one for me, Brian.
Hierarchical.
All righty.
Hierarchical structure. Their leadership, right?
I think you're a Texan, right?
I am. Yep.
I'm originally in Arkansas, but we both come from very similar part of the world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we do speak like we from the South.
Some of us more so than others.
Yeah. You ought to see my kid. He really speaks country, which I don't understand.
Right.
He got a heavy dose of it. Anyways.
Yeah, he did.
So we're going to talk about the structure, the leadership, the family structure. Now, this is a big thing. This is a central part of his teaching. Mm-hmm. Very central part. Yep. Starting with the umbrella protection. Now, the umbrella protection, this is something I've learned about in church myself. I never heard anything about Bill Gothard or that it was from him or anything. But a previous church I taught definitely taught about this. And we use the term biblical submission.
Right.
That the family structure was set up in a certain way. The famous graphic, which I'm sure you'll pop up on the YouTube video here somewhere.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I bet I could do that.
Is I don't know if y'all know that Brian's our editor. Editing. Yeah, editor extraordinaire here. But you'll pop up the graphic there. You know, it shows a set of umbrellas.
Yep.
First being Christ. Christ kind of shelters you from the storm and everything, right? Second being the husband. His job being to protect the family, provide for the family. Third being the wife. She's the children, the manager of the home. The children are under her, and then she kind of manages the home. She takes care of the children, that sort of thing. It's very traditional. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I want to say American, but very traditional 1950s style of the family kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've heard some people refer to the cleavers, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a good thing. And, we're not really debating the pros and cons of their beliefs right here, but we're definitely going to talk more about that in the response things because it seems like a good thing. And there's a lot of perception there that can be very disturbing.
Right. Yeah. It's a matter of how it's taken.
Right. But there's a lot of perception there that can be very, wow, this is a great thing and this builds strong families and da-da-da. I have friends who practice this. We practice very similarly in my own household. My wife and I, practice biblical submission and such. However, not to the extent that some IBLP families have been known to practice.
Right.
So, and again, we'll talk about that more in our response there because I think there's a lot to that. But that's a basic tenet of what he was teaching.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about the structure. Now, he also extended this. This started with talking about the family.
Right.
But he extended that you are always in submission to someone. Mm-hmm. Whether it's your boss at work or it's your preacher, and etc., which I find very interesting because while this was this movement was not tied to a particular denomination, there were people in different denominations part of this. It was heavy in some primitive Baptist churches and things like that, which are traditionally very congregationalist and independent and don't have a large structure in their church. So their only authority figure is their local pastor. Which I find interesting because he emphasizes authority so much. So they don't have bishops, or over areas and things, or a pope or anything like that.
Right.
This was not common in Catholic teachings. The Gothard stuff was not common among Catholic congregations.
No.
But he taught submission, and that became very important later on because he taught that he was in charge of the IBLP. So people who were working there or volunteering there should submit to him.
Uh-huh. Yep.
That it was God's will that you submit to whoever's above you, even if they're wrong.
Right.
There's where the problems came.
Yep. And
that was not how I was taught this, by the way. I was not taught that you submit to the person above you, even if they're wrong. The Christ thing was really heavily emphasized when I was taught it, but that's not exactly how the IBLP taught it.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting, right, that you bring up Roman Catholicism, right? Because this is an evangelical adjacent parachurch ministry, right? And yet Gothard, who was the primary founder and leader, also set himself up as the only scriptural authority, right? So any scriptural interpretation came from him, and his teaching was the foundation. He basically made himself the Pope of this organization.
In some ways, yes, he made himself very much in charge. Yep. And so because of this hierarchical structure, he very much pushed who was in charge of things, and he was in charge of his organization. And this, his goal was to talk about this was to create strong families, but he kind of took that and spread it into the whole organization. Mm-hmm. And then you want to tell us a little bit about how the organization was set up? Yeah,
so under him, you've got the board of directors, but during his tenure, the board of directors was selected by him, right? And then there was the headquarters staff, right? We talked a little bit about them in the notable events and controversies, and I'm sure we'll talk more about headquarters staff in the social issues.
Yes.
They were in charge of operations and just day-to-day management of the organization as a whole. And you had regional directors, right? So you're expanding out in a very corporate style, right? Kind of a CEO, directors, although in the corporation, the CEO kind of works for the directors, and this was the opposite. But, then you have the regional, and then you have local coordinators, so individuals that manage smaller subsections. And then you have the seminar leaders and the volunteers, right? So it was very layered structure, right? So seminar leaders and volunteers answer to the coordinators, and the coordinators answer to the directors, and the directors answer to the headquarters, and headquarters answers to the board answers to Gothard, right? So
Yes, and at some point, Gothard answered to the board. So that role moved around a little bit, especially in 2014.
But
Gothard answered to the board.
Yeah, in 2014, there was the big shakeup. But really prior to that...
And the board was in place to be oversight.
Right.
Yes, he did pick them.
Yeah.
And the board of directors, even today, are, important people in the organization. Mm-hmm. Other TV stars, we talked about the Duggars. I know this. Yeah. There's another family, the Bates, that also had a TV show for a while. The head of their family, the father of that family, is on the board of directors of the IBLP today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know if the Duggars were ever on the board of directors or not. I do know that Jim Bob was quite important there. He might have been on the board. I'm not sure.
Right. Yep.
Okay, well, so that's basically the covering of their structure and their leadership.
That's
that umbrella thing that people ever talk about, that was a big deal.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it. So I'm sure we'll talk about it in the future.
And I think that's shared from other groups. I think this umbrella thing is credited to him, but I think lots of groups put a similar structure in place.
Yep.
All right. Well, until next time, y'all.
Next time.